Mr. Thompson's life took an unexpected turn when his wife, Maria, tragically passed away during childbirth, leaving him to raise their twin daughters alone. The pain of her loss was overwhelming, but he promised her, and himself, that he would do whatever it took to ensure their daughters had a future full of opportunities. After the girls turned 5, he remarried, hoping that Clara, his new wife, would offer the stability his family needed. He believed that having a partner would protect his daughters from the societal biases they would face, but Clara grew resentful of the twins, often calling them cruel names. The marriage quickly deteriorated, and a bitter divorce followed. Mr. Thompson swore never to marry again. Instead, he sold everything he owned, his house, his tools, and his means of livelihood, to ensure his daughters could attend school. The people in his community mocked him for his decision. "What kind of man gives up everything to educate girls?" they scoffed. "They'll grow up, get married, and leave you behind." But Mr. Thompson remained unshaken in his resolve, never questioning his choice. He was determined to give Lillian and Millie the opportunities they deserved, even if it meant sacrificing his own comfort and security. If this is your first time on our channel, take a moment to subscribe as we dive deeper into this inspiring journey. To our returning subscribers, thank you for your support and for always liking our videos. Now, let's get into the full story. The hospital room was thick with tension as the monitors beeped slowly, signaling the end of one life and the beginning of another. Mr. Thompson had hoped for a son, someone who would grow up to share his love for carpentry, but when the doctor arrived, hat in hand, his world was shaken. "I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson, your wife didn't survive, but your daughters are alive," the doctor said quietly. 2 nurses placed tiny, identical twin girls into his trembling arms. Mr. Thompson felt a sob escape his chest. "Maria, we promised we'd name him Daniel if it was a boy," he whispered, tears falling onto the baby's blankets. "Lillian, Millie, I will take care of you girls." The grief in his heart was immense, but love and determination filled him just as strongly. With no family to support him and only the memory of his late mother to guide him, he carried the girls out of the hospital, ready to face an uncertain future. At home, the weight of the bills and funeral plans pressed down on him. As the sun rose, Mr. Thompson found himself scrambling to find formula for the twins, panicked by the empty tins. Desperation led him to Mrs. Harper, a kind woman who collected donor milk from nursing mothers. "These children are everyone's children now," she said, handing him 2 bottles. Her kindness felt like a beacon in the darkness, and for the first time, Mr. Thompson felt hope. As he rocked the twins that night, he hummed a lullaby Maria had once sung. Though the house felt cold, the warmth of their tiny breaths against his chest soothed him. Over the next weeks, he stitched diapers from old bed sheets, boiled water in rusty pots, and learned to swaddle by trial and error. The community was quick to whisper. Neighbors looked over the fence, doubting his ability to raise his daughters alone. A carpenter, someone who worked with his hands, couldn't possibly take care of 2 infants. But Mr. Thompson ignored them, focused on the future, and crafted a mobile for the crib from scrap wood and string. The exhaustion was immense, but the vow he made to Maria echoed in his mind, "I will take care of you." By their first checkup, the twins were thriving. The nurses were amazed at how healthy they had become. Slowly, the town stopped predicting failure. Yet, loneliness crept in every night. Mr. Thompson would stand at the doorway of their room, watching them sleep, whispering stories about their mother, the woman who loved to bake pies, who laughed louder than anyone he knew, who gave everything for them to live. He prayed that one day they would understand the depth of Maria's sacrifice. For now, All he could offer was his steady hands and a father's love. As the twins grew, their milestones fueled Mr. Thompson's determination to give them opportunities he never had. Lillian's first word was plain, and Millie's was Papa. He juggled feedings with carpentry orders, carving headboards while rocking the cradle with his foot. One afternoon, in a cloud of timber dust, exhaustion finally caught up with him, and he fainted. When he opened his eyes, his neighbor, Mrs. Brown, was standing over him, wagging her finger. "You need help, man," she said. "Pride will bury you faster than grief." She arranged for 4 women to rotate visits, bringing food, washing clothes, and helping with the babies. Mr. Thompson protested, but eventually surrendered to their kindness. Every evening, Mrs. Harper brought fresh bottles of donor milk, and every night, she reminded him, Maria saved many women by teaching them to read. "Now we repay you." Her words eased his guilt for accepting their charity. He kept meticulous notes on feeding times and volumes, determined to raise strong, healthy girls. The twins grew into toddlers, filling the house with laughter. Wooden shavings became confetti in their hair as they turned the carpentry shed into their playground. Mr. Thompson couldn't help but marvel at their curiosity and imagination. But with every milestone, the harsh whispers of the community became louder. "A man without a wife is incomplete," they said. "Children need a mother." Suitors began to approach, subtly praising his craftsmanship, hoping for more than just his furniture. Mr. Thompson smiled politely but never let his heart soften. He spoke often to Maria's portrait at night, confessing his doubts. "Am I enough for them?" The portrait seemed to offer silent approval, glowing softly under the candlelight. He felt her presence there, as if her spirit was still watching over them. One Sunday after church, the pastor gave a sermon on companionship. The weight of the words pressed down on Mr. Thompson like a heavy burden. He felt the stares of the congregation, the judgment from others who saw him as incomplete without a wife. After the service, he ushered the twins outside, his heart heavy with the thought of his own loneliness. Later that night, as he rocked the twins to sleep, he asked aloud, "Should I dare let someone else in?" The question hung in the air, unanswered, drifting like the smell of fresh cedar through their quiet home. In those months, father and daughters formed an unshakable bond, a fortress of 3. Outsiders saw only chaos, sawdust on the floor, nappies drying on the line, incomplete orders piling up. But inside their home, there was something that silenced the gossip, a rhythm of laughter, lullabies, and love strong enough to withstand any judgment. When the twins turned 5, school fees became a looming reality. Mr. Thompson's carpentry business, though steady, barely made enough to cover the basics, let alone the rising costs of education. After one particularly lean quarter, he thought of remarrying, not for love, but out of sheer practicality. He needed a partner, someone who could help him raise the girls and provide for them. That's when he met Clara, a soft-spoken, recently widowed woman who was admired for her cooking. She praised Mr. Thompson's craftsmanship, doted on the twins during brief visits, and promised she would treat them as her own. Her gentle smile chipped away at his hesitation, and, after much consideration, they married. The wedding was simple, but beautiful, held beneath a tree with soft music drifting across the yard. The twins twirled in yellow dresses, excited at the thought of gaining a Mama Clara. For 6 sweet months, the house was filled with the warm aroma of fresh bread, and bedtime became a cherished ritual of stories told in 2 voices. Mr. Thompson dared to believe that fate had finally granted them a second chance at family. But then, on a humid Thursday afternoon, reality struck. Mr. Thompson returned late from the workshop, sweat clinging to his shirt, when he heard the sounds of screaming from inside the house. Rushing in, he found Clara towering over the twins, brandishing a wooden spoon. The twins were cowering, and Clara was furious. "Bastard twins," she spat. "You spilled oil on my new rug." Millie was terrified, and Lillian stood protectively in front of her sister. Something deep within Mr. Thompson stirred, a primal protectiveness that could no longer be contained. He stepped between them, his voice shaking but strong. "Touch them again, and you'll answer to me, and to God." Clara's face twisted in disdain. "You think anyone will want a man cursed with motherless girls?" she sneered. The word stung, and without saying another word, she packed her belongings and left, slamming the door behind her. The community was quick to gossip about the failed marriage, but Mr. Thompson held his daughters close, offering them the only comfort he could, his unwavering love and protection. The next morning, as the twins slept, he knelt beside their beds and whispered, "Never again will I gamble with your safety. You are my everything." The vow, renewed and ironclad, was all he could give them. School resumed, and Clara's memory faded like chalk washed away in the rain. Mr. Thompson continued to cook, braid their hair, and forget picture day forms, but the twins laughed through it all. They invented a secret handshake, 3 claps and a nose tap, symbolizing their unbreakable unity. At night, if loneliness crept in, he buried it in the workbench. He sanded planks until dawn, finishing bookshelf orders to pay for their education. Mr. Thompson didn't care what the village council thought. "Who sells his heart for daughters?" they muttered. "Sons would carry his name." But he responded with more shelves, more laughter, and more love, proving that family is not defined by blood, but by the people who choose you. The years passed quickly. Primary school, or elementary school, sped by in a blur of chalk dust and lunchtime exchanges. Lillian loved science charts, and Millie tinkered with broken radios, claiming she could make them sing again. Mr. Thompson beamed with pride whenever their report cards came, but as secondary school fees approached, the burden became unbearable. Textbooks, uniforms, and lab fees, the costs kept rising. His carpentry shop couldn't keep up. Mr. Thompson tightened his belt, skipped meals, and even accepted night commissions, carving office desks by weak lamplight. One rainy afternoon, a businessman entered his shop, admiring a mahogany cradle that Mr. Thompson was restoring. "Your craftsmanship is wasted here," the man said. "You could open a showroom in the city. You'd make a fortune." Mr. Thompson smiled politely but shook his head. The city was a luxury he couldn't afford. His dreams didn't wear suits, they wore school uniforms. Each finished piece from Mr. Thompson's workshop helped fund their dreams: spelling bee fees, class excursions, and the everyday needs of raising 2 growing girls. But the town's whispers grew louder. "Who sells his heart for daughters?" they murmured. "Sons would carry his name." Still, Mr. Thompson responded with more work, more shelves, and more laughter. The shed echoed with the sound of tools, but inside their small home there was a rhythm of love, a bond forged from hardship. In that defiance, the twins learned their first lesson: family is the people who choose you every single day. Lillian loved her science charts, while Millie tinkered with broken radios, convinced she could make them sing again. Mr. Thompson's pride swelled each time the twins brought home report cards. But with the twins nearing secondary school, school fees loomed large. Textbooks, uniforms, lab contributions, each year the costs grew. The carpentry shop's modest income plateaued while timber prices continued to rise. He tightened his belt, skipped meals, and even took on night commissions, carving office desks under the dim light of a kerosene lamp. Then, one rainy afternoon, a businessman entered the shop and admired a mahogany cradle Mr. Thompson was restoring for a client. "Your craftsmanship is wasted here," the man said. "Open a showroom in the city. You could make a fortune." Mr. Thompson smiled politely but shook his head. The city was a luxury he couldn't afford. His dreams weren't wrapped in suits, they were wrapped in school uniforms. Then, without warning, government inspectors arrived, citing new permits and safety upgrades. Compliance would cost more than a year's worth of profits. Mr. Thompson pleaded for more time, but he was handed a closure notice instead. That night, he laid the document on the dinner table. The twins, now 13, watched as their father buried his face in his calloused hands. Millie reached across the table, whispering, "Papa, we will be okay." Together, they scavenged discarded wood to build birdhouses, selling them at local markets. Lillian painted bright wings, while Millie engineered swiveling bases. The customers loved the novelty, but their earnings barely made a dent in the school fees. Mr. Thompson considered selling his prized possession, his carpentry shop building. The thought of parting with it felt like selling a limb, but the future demanded sacrifice. He visited the land registry with a pounding heart, and when he returned, he carried a for sale sign. The town's gossip exploded. "Foolish man. Girls will marry and leave. Invest in sons." The twins overheard every sneer, but they stayed silent, their hands adding extra color to their birdhouses, turning pain into art. 3 months later, a buyer came forward, offering enough money to cover the high school fees and a modest living allowance. Mr. Thompson signed the deal, his hands trembling as he handed over the keys. On moving day, the twins pressed their palms against the dusty walls of the shop, silently thanking it for feeding them for so many years. Mr. Thompson locked the door for the last time, tears falling onto the iron padlock. He walked away, carrying only a toolbox, with Lillian and Millie at his side. Behind them, the wooden sign creaked in the wind, whispering a farewell only they could hear. Relocation was inevitable. They rented 2 small rooms near the central library in the city, close to the twins' new secondary school. Mr. Thompson searched for work, but carpentry jobs were scarce. One day, a custodian position caught his eye. The pay was modest, and the hours were from dawn until noon. He applied, explaining his history as a woodworker. The head librarian, Mrs. Harper, examined his scarred palms before smiling. Anyone who respects wood will respect books. The job is yours. Each morning before sunrise, Mr. Thompson swept marble corridors, polished reading tables, and oiled creaky hinges. As the sun rose, he inhaled the scent of paper and ink, a very different forest than the one he once carved. He pocketed torn pages to patch at home, muttering, "No story deserves to be thrown away." The twins often joined him after class, finishing their homework between the library shelves while their father mopped. The librarians adored them and often slipped extra textbooks into their backpacks. They returned home breathless, excitedly declaring their dreams of becoming professionals in aviation and engineering. Mr. Thompson nodded, a mix of pride and fear intertwining in his heart. "Then we will aim for the sky," he said, knowing the ground beneath him was already cracked. The final year of school nearly broke them. Mr. Thompson patched their school shoes with leftover leather, mended their uniforms until the seams were barely holding together, and took on extra cleaning shifts, scrubbing graffiti from stairwells at midnight. The twins volunteered at church bake sales, saving coins in a biscuit tin they called Sky Fund. As graduation week arrived, admission letters came. Lillian was accepted into Emerald Air Academy for a BSc in aviation, and Millie into Techfront University for BSc in mechanical engineering and avionics. Lillian loved her science charts, while Millie tinkered with broken radios, convinced she could make them sing again. Mr. Thompson's pride swelled each time the twins brought home report cards. But with the twins nearing secondary school, school fees loomed large. Textbooks, uniforms, lab contributions, each year the costs grew. The carpentry shop's modest income plateaued while timber prices continued to rise. He tightened his belt, skipped meals, and even took on night commissions, carving office desks under the dim light of a kerosene lamp. Then, one rainy afternoon, a businessman entered the shop and admired a mahogany cradle Mr. Thompson was restoring for a client. "Your craftsmanship is wasted here," the man said. "Open a showroom in the city. You could make a fortune." Mr. Thompson smiled politely but shook his head. The city was a luxury he couldn't afford. His dreams weren't wrapped in suits, they were wrapped in school uniforms. Then, without warning, government inspectors arrived, citing new permits and safety upgrades. Compliance would cost more than a year's worth of profits. Mr. Thompson pleaded for more time, but he was handed a closure notice instead. That night, he laid the document on the dinner table. The twins, now 13, watched as their father buried his face in his calloused hands. Millie reached across the table, whispering, "Papa, we will be okay." Together, they scavenged discarded wood to build birdhouses, selling them at local markets. Lillian painted bright wings, while Millie engineered swiveling bases. The customers loved the novelty, but their earnings barely made a dent in the school fees. Mr. Thompson considered selling his prized possession, his carpentry shop building. The thought of parting with it felt like selling a limb, but the future demanded sacrifice. He visited the land registry with a pounding heart, and when he returned, he carried a for sale sign. The town's gossip exploded. "Foolish man. Girls will marry and leave. Invest in sons." The twins overheard every sneer, but they stayed silent, their hands adding extra color to their birdhouses, turning pain into art. 3 months later, a buyer came forward, offering enough money to cover the high school fees and a modest living allowance. Mr. Thompson signed the deal, his hands trembling as he handed over the keys. On moving day, the twins pressed their palms against the dusty walls of the shop, silently thanking it for feeding them for so many years. Mr. Thompson locked the door for the last time, tears falling onto the iron padlock. He walked away, carrying only a toolbox, with Lillian and Millie at his side. Behind them, the wooden sign creaked in the wind, whispering a farewell only they could hear. Relocation was inevitable. They rented 2 small rooms near the central library in the city, close to the twins' new secondary school. Mr. Thompson searched for work, but carpentry jobs were scarce. One day, a custodian position caught his eye. The pay was modest, and the hours were from dawn until noon. He applied, explaining his history as a woodworker. The head librarian, Mrs. Harper, examined his scarred palms before smiling. "Anyone who respects wood will respect books. The job is yours." Each morning before sunrise, Mr. Thompson swept marble corridors, polished reading tables, and oiled creaky hinges. As the sun rose, he inhaled the scent of paper and ink, a very different forest than the one he once carved. He pocketed torn pages to patch at home, muttering, "No story deserves to be thrown away." The twins often joined him after class, finishing their homework between the library shelves while their father mopped. The librarians adored them and often slipped extra textbooks into their backpacks. They returned home breathless, excitedly declaring their dreams of becoming professionals in aviation and engineering. Mr. Thompson nodded, a mix of pride and fear intertwining in his heart. "Then we will aim for the sky," he said, knowing the ground beneath him was already cracked. The final year of school nearly broke them. Mr. Thompson patched their school shoes with leftover leather, mended their uniforms until the seams were barely holding together, and took on extra cleaning shifts, scrubbing graffiti from stairwells at midnight. The twins volunteered at church bake sales, saving coins in a biscuit tin they called Sky Fund. As graduation week arrived, admission letters came. Lillian was accepted into Emerald Air Academy for a BSc in aviation, and Millie into Techfront University for BSc in mechanical engineering and avionics. Excitement turned to quiet panic as the tuition figures loomed over them. The competition for scholarships was fierce, and many of them required detailed essays. One, titled "Why My Background Fuels My Dreams," pushed them to dig deep. Lillian wrote about losing a mother she never knew, finding fathers in library shelves, and dreaming of flying engines. Millie wrote about birdhouses and broken radios, which taught her lessons on lift and torque. Their raw honesty secured them partial grants, but it still wasn't enough. One morning, Mr. Thompson stood outside their rented apartment, staring at his toolbox, the last relic of his craft. He took it to a pawn shop. The clerk examined each chisel, offering a humiliating price. But Mr. Thompson accepted, his tears masked by the sawdust on his cheeks. That evening, he placed the cash in front of the twins. "University will happen," he said, his voice thick with emotion. They wept, not out of joy, but from the weight of his sacrifice. Community mockery only grew stronger. Former neighbors sent letters telling him that a man without assets was no man. Mr. Thompson burned them, letting the flames consume their judgment. He now worked weekends cleaning office buildings, while the twins wiped windows for pocket money. Strangers often mistook them for his employees, but Mr. Thompson was proud. He introduced the twins proudly as future pilots and engineers, though some laughed and others offered bus fare. By September, they managed to scrape together enough for first semester fees. On move-in day, Mr. Thompson borrowed a wheelbarrow to transport 2 suitcases and a stack of second-hand textbooks across the campus lawn. Students with flashy cars stared at them, but the twins waved. Before leaving, Mr. Thompson knelt down, despite the public display. He prayed over them, asking God to give him strength in exchange for their success. The dormitory elevator doors closed, taking his daughters upward as he remained on ground level, watching them disappear. Walking home, he felt both empty and full. The city lights blurred around him, and for the first time since Maria's death, Mr. Thompson allowed himself to imagine a future where grief was no longer the headline, but the footnote. University life was dazzling, but brutal. Lillian struggled with advanced physics, and Millie wrestled through calculus and machine design. Many of their classmates arrived in chauffeur-driven vehicles. The twins rode packed buses at dawn, balancing their notes on their laps. At night, they worked part-time at a cafeteria, pouring leftover soup into thermos flasks for their father. Mr. Thompson, now 48, felt his muscles protest with every mop stroke. Yet he refused rest, timing his breaks to call the twins and recite motivational quotes scribbled on napkins. "Pressure turns rough stones into smooth ones," he'd say. The twins repeated the phrase before every exam, knowing that their father's strength would carry them through. Midway through the semester, Millie's laptop crashed, erasing a crucial assignment. She borrowed lab computers at odd hours, but security guards began complaining. Meanwhile, Lillian stayed awake at night, solving practice problems by flashlight so Millie could use their shared desk. Exhaustion was knocking at their door like an unwelcome guest, but they kept going. During a campus symposium, Lillian impressed a visiting pilot with her detailed questions about cockpit ergonomics. He offered to mentor her and gave her access to flight simulators. Meanwhile, Millie won a design contest with her proposal for adjustable winglets for small aircraft. The prize money covered next month's rent. They called their father, their voices trembling with relief. Mr. Thompson danced alone in the library corridor, sweeping the floors, tears streaking his smile. He knew, deep down, that every sacrifice had been worth it. The future was beginning to unfold for them. "God hears persistent knocks," Mr. Thompson whispered to himself, but the hardships persisted. One evening, while cleaning the library's marble floors, he slipped and sprained his back. Taking sick leave meant lost wages, and bedridden for a week, he fretted over unpaid rent. The twins, despite their own busy schedules, took on part-time jobs, working in the cafeteria and walking dogs for affluent professors, to send what little money they could back home. Struggle became a constant rhythm, like clock gears turning endlessly, but it never stopped them. By the end of the semester, both Lillian and Millie were ranked in the top 5 in their classes. Their names appeared on the dean's list, and the whispers from their classmates shifted from disdain to admiration. When they returned to their small dorm room, they high-fived each other over bowls of instant noodles. Outside, fireworks crackled in the night sky for University Founders' Day, but inside, their hearts celebrated a quieter triumph, proof that faith and hard work could transcend even the most difficult circumstances. Second year began with new promise, but soon Mr. Thompson received an eviction notice. The rent had risen beyond what his cleaning job could cover. He moved their belongings into a small space at a nearby church and began sleeping on a mat in a library storage room. When the twins visited for a break, Mr. Thompson told them he was upgrading the apartment, but they could sense the lie. They didn't press him, respecting his pride. One evening, exhaustion finally caught up with him. He fell asleep while operating a floor buffer. The machine jerked, slamming into bookshelves, sending books crashing to the floor. One priceless first edition fell into a puddle of dirty water. The head librarian, Mrs. Harper, gasped. "Mr. Thompson, your health is failing." Facing potential termination, he confessed everything to her. Instead of firing him, Mrs. Harper organized a fundraiser, citing his decades of service. Professors donated, and alumni sent checks. Within weeks, the funds covered his medical bills and secured a modest apartment near the university. Mr. Thompson protested, but Mrs. Harper insisted, "You've mended our books. Let us now mend your life." During his recovery, Mr. Thompson began taking free evening classes in computer-aided drafting, humorously claiming, "Old dogs learn new tricks." The twins cheered him on, and Lillian supervised his physical therapy sessions via video calls, while Millie emailed ergonomic chair designs to help prevent future injury. At the end of the year, Lillian saw an opportunity she couldn't ignore. The aviation school announced a competitive internship program with Skyway Airlines, but only 2 slots were available. Lillian applied, knowing she was up against students with family connections in the industry. On selection day, she spotted her name on the notice board, ranked first. Overcome with emotion, she collapsed into Millie's arms, crying, "Papa's mop bought me wings." Meanwhile, Millie secured a summer placement at Aerotech Manufacturing, where she designed a prototype avionics bracket, lightweight and sturdy, which impressed her supervisors. They extended her internship indefinitely, offering a modest stipend. Millie sent half of it to Mr. Thompson, who used it to buy health insurance for the first time in years. At night, Mr. Thompson journaled his gratitude. He reflected on the spilled milk that had led to donor mothers, the ruined cradles that gave birth to birdhouses, and the nights spent on the library floor, which taught him how to be generous with others. Over time, He realized that pain had carved space for blessing, one splinter at a time. Third year flew by in a blur of final dissertations, simulator hours, and sleepless nights spent designing. The twins had developed a shared mantra, one more step. Whenever anxiety crept in, they called home to hear Mr. Thompson's steady voice, reciting Psalm 23. In return, Mr. Thompson leaned on his colleagues at the library, who made sure he ate properly and forced him to rest. But a month before their final exams, Mr. Thompson felt a familiar tightness in his chest while polishing oak banisters. Doctors confirmed mild hypertension, and the medication added another expense to his already strained finances. Lillian threatened to drop a class and work extra shifts to help. Mr. Thompson forbade it. Millie offered to sell her phone. He vetoed that, too. They compromised by sending him weekly meal prep containers. On campus, Lillian aced her instrument flight check ride, logging flawless takeoffs and landings. Millie unveiled her capstone project, an AI-assisted diagnostics module for cockpit systems. Judges awarded her the highest honors. Word spread quickly. The twins of the cleaner who sold everything. Media outlets requested interviews, but they declined, citing their exams. Still, the legend of their perseverance grew. Back at the library, staff began planning a surprise retirement party for Mr. Thompson, whose contract was ending due to fiscal restructuring. He accepted the news gently, realizing that seasons change. What he didn't know was that Mrs. Harper, the head librarian, had circulated his resume to various furniture boutiques in the city. Within days, Artisan Gallery offered him a consultant role designing custom pieces for luxury hotels, with a salary 3 times what he had been making as a cleaner. They valued not only his skills but also his incredible story. When he called the twins to share the news, they screamed so loudly that a dormitory alarm went off. 3 victories in 1 week. It all felt surreal. Lillian clapped her hands, chanting, "Papa's back in business." Millie immediately began calculating how soon they could pay off his overdue utility bills, exactly 2 pay cycles. With exams concluding and gowns ordered, Mr. Thompson tailored his old Sunday suit, ironing it to near perfection. He bought a second-hand camera and taught himself basic photography on YouTube, determined to capture every moment. In his journal he wrote, "Maria, come see what your girls have become." Graduation day arrived, bright and full of promise. Rows of caps shimmered under the stadium lights as Mr. Thompson claimed a front-row seat among mentors and proud parents. When Lillian crossed the stage, he couldn't contain his excitement. "That's my pilot," he shouted, causing laughter in the stands. Millie followed, tassel swinging, and blew a kiss to her father. Cameras flashed, but Mr. Thompson tried to photograph the moment through his tears. Strangers kindly snapped pictures for him instead. After the ceremony, the twins led him to the tarmac where Skyway Airlines had parked a training jet for demonstrations. Lillian, now officially a first officer trainee, invited him inside the cockpit. He traced the switches like sacred relics, whispering, "I used to build toy planes from scrap." She smiled and replied, "Your hands built this future too." Millie joined them, holding a gift. It was a miniature wooden plane, carved from leftover mahogany, the first wood Mr. Thompson had ever let her touch. "For your desk at Artisan Gallery," she said. Mr. Thompson cradled the gift as though it breathed. "Your crew finally cornered the family for interviews," a reporter asked. "What kept you going?" He answered simply, "A promise to their mother." The interview clip went viral, inspiring parents across the country. Donations poured into a new scholarship fund the twins established for girls in STEM, named Maria's Promise. That evening, they sat at a modest roadside stall, eating grilled chicken and fried plantains, preferring the humble flavors over a lavish banquet. Between bites, they planned their next steps: Lillian's simulator sessions, Millie's engineering residency, and Mr. Thompson's first hotel lobby installation, a sculpted walnut reception desk. 3 paths, 1 heartbeat. Under the streetlights, Mr. Thompson lifted his face to the sky. Planes roared overhead, their red beacons tracing arcs of destiny. For the first time in 21 years, he allowed himself to exhale fully. The vow had not only survived, but it had taken flight. 6 months passed, and the Maria's Promise Scholarship Fund continued to grow. Mr. Thompson, Lillian, and Millie became living examples of what could be achieved through perseverance and self-sacrifice. Their family, once mocked and overlooked, now served as an inspiration for others. And while the city had changed, and their lives were filled with new challenges, their bond remained unshaken, stronger than ever. Mr. Thompson's bespoke furniture designs soon graced the lobbies of luxury hotels and the offices of major corporations. He began training apprentices, teaching them carpentry techniques while also passing down life lessons about perseverance and sacrifice. In the evenings, he enrolled in business courses, learning about supply chain logistics and the nuances of managing a company. "Education never ends," he would tell his apprentices, echoing advice he once gave to his daughters. Lillian advanced rapidly, co-piloting regional flights and collecting postcards from cities she had once only dreamed of visiting. Every landing was a reminder of how far she'd come, and each time, she whispered to herself, "Papa, we made it." Millie's work on an AI-assisted diagnostics module for cockpit systems secured a patent, and soon Aerotech offered her a leadership role. However, Millie countered the offer, requesting a research grant for renewable energy ecosystems, and to her delight, they agreed. The twins then pooled their savings and began scouting real estate. One Saturday, they drove Mr. Thompson to a gated community on the outskirts of the city. He assumed they were quoting furniture jobs, but they pulled up in front of a cream-colored mansion. "Welcome home, Papa," Millie announced with a wide grin. A gold plaque beside the door read, "Thompson House." Shock rendered Mr. Thompson speechless. Inside, portraits of Maria, the twins at various stages of their lives, and a framed copy of Mr. Thompson's original carpentry license adorned the living room. Tears began to fall as he touched the polished marble floor. "I can't accept this luxury," he rasped. Lillian stepped forward. "You once slept on a storeroom floor so we could have textbooks. Accept this roof because we finally can." Mr. Thompson surrendered, embracing them until laughter replaced his sobs. The twins organized a housewarming feast, inviting librarians, donor mothers, apprentices, and even some of the skeptics who had once mocked them. Many offered apologies, and some stood silently, humbled by the proof of a father's unwavering faith. Mr. Thompson raised a glass of malt, toasting Maria and every unseen ally along the road. That night, standing on the balcony, Mr. Thompson watched as the city lights flickered like votive candles. In the distance, an aircraft ascended. Maybe it was Lillian piloting it, maybe not. Regardless, the sky now felt personal, an ongoing story written in contrails. With their stability finally achieved, the twins turned their attention outward. They pitched a bold idea to the municipal council to build a combined school and health clinic in their rural hometown where education and health care were scarce. Funding came from their salaries, Mr. Thompson's profits, and donations sparked by their viral interviews. The council granted them the land, and construction began. Mr. Thompson oversaw the carpentry work, designing desks that were wide enough for left-handed students, something that had long been overlooked in the community. Lillian taught weekend aviation science workshops, letting children craft paper planes, while Millie installed solar panels and explained renewable energy in simple terms. The opening day attracted crowds, and the building bore the name Maria Memorial School and Health Center. A ribbon-cutting ceremony featured choir songs and a flyover by Skyway Airlines in honor of Lillian. Children screamed with delight, and elders wiped away tears. Mr. Thompson delivered a heartfelt speech. Once, people called investing in girls a waste. Today, girls are investing in everyone. The applause thundered, and newspaper headlines praised the twins. But they redirected credit to the community donors and early helpers, like Madam Isle and Mrs. Harper, each given honorary plaques. They believed humility was the true runway to sustained impact. In the following months, clinic nurses recorded dramatic drops in preventable diseases, and school enrollment doubled, especially among girls. Success stories spread. One child proudly announced she would become a pilot doctor, inspired by both Lillian and Millie. The vows that had once seemed impossible now rippled across communities, reaching shores Mr. Thompson and his daughters would never see. Despite the triumphs, old wounds resurfaced when Clara, the stepmother who had left, appeared at Mr. Thompson's gallery. Gaunt and desperate, she explained how her second husband had squandered their savings and how she now sought employment. After Clara left Mr. Thompson and the twins, her life spirals into disappointment. She marries again, but her second husband squanders their savings, leading to his eventual departure. Alone and struggling, Clara reflects on her past actions, the cruelty she inflicted on the twins, whom she had once rejected because of their race. She regrets not recognizing the opportunity for love and family when it was right in front of her. Clara is overwhelmed with shame, realizing that she had chosen bitterness over love, and in doing so, had lost not only Mr. Thompson but also any chance at redemption. In a vulnerable moment, Clara visits Mr. Thompson's gallery, seeking help and apologizing for the way she treated Lillian and Millie. She admits that she was drowning in bitterness and insecurity, afraid of the challenge the twins represented. Her apology is heartfelt and honest, as she recognizes that her prejudice was rooted in fear and ignorance. She's ashamed of the way she once looked at them, seeing them as a burden instead of as the strong, capable young women they had become. When Mr. Thompson offers her a small consulting contract, despite all the hurt she caused, Clara is both humbled and grateful. She understands that forgiveness is not just a gift to the person who receives it, but also a reminder of the power of redemption and change. Her regret, however, is something that can never be fully erased, but it becomes a turning point in her life, teaching her the importance of letting go of the past and embracing compassion, especially when it comes to family. The staff bristled at her presence, but Mr. Thompson offered her tea. Over steaming cups, she apologized for her cruelty toward the twins. "I was drowning in my own bitterness," she confessed. Mr. Thompson felt a stir of anger, but he remembered the sleepless nights spent carving forgiveness into wood. He offered her a small consulting contract, ensuring she would report to HR, not to him. That evening, Mr. Thompson told the twins. Millie clenched her jaw, while Lillian sighed, recalling Psalm 23. They agreed that mercy did not erase memory, but it freed the heart from its chains. News of Mr. Thompson's gesture spread, amplifying his legacy. Critics claimed he was naive. Supporters hailed his grace. Yet, he ignored both labels, focusing on the next furniture commission. In private, he wrestled with uneasy gratitude, knowing hard lessons often forged unbreakable bonds. Years passed in a rhythm of routine triumphs. Lillian achieved captain status, commanding international flights. Millie led a team developing lightweight composite fuselages, reducing fuel consumption by 15%. Their joint foundation sponsored dozens of girls in STEM programs nationwide. On the anniversary of Maria's death, the family gathered at her grave. Mr. Thompson, now with graying hair but standing tall, placed cedar shavings shaped like wings on the headstone. The twins read letters to the mother they never met, describing their first flights, prototypes, and the mansion's garden. The wind rustled the leaves, sounding almost like applause. Afterward, they visited the Donor Milk Center, founded by Madam Harper, now expanded with the capacity to serve multiple districts. A plaque listed the initial donors, including the mothers who once nourished the twins. Lillian addressed the staff. "You saved our lives, drop by drop. Today, we fly because you believed, unseen." Nurses wiped away tears as cameras clicked. Back home, the trio watched the sunset from the balcony. Mr. Thompson mused, "Life carved me into a better man than I ever planned." Millie leaned on his shoulder and said, "And carved us into women who carry your mark wherever we go." Stars began to emerge, the same ones Mr. Thompson had once studied from a leaky roof. Now, they glittered above their mansion, yet still felt no less miraculous. The vow had outgrown its maker, shining a light on countless paths. That was legacy. On the 20th anniversary of Maria Memorial School and Health Center, dignitaries gathered for the unveiling of its expansion. Mr. Thompson, now 70 but still walking proudly, had a hand-carved walking cane made by Millie. A choir of children sang a song titled A Father's Promise, with lyrics written by Lillian during a transatlantic layover. As the speeches ended, a young girl named Amina tugged at Mr. Thompson's sleeve. "Sir, I want to become an aerospace engineer and help Captain Lillian." Tears welled in his eyes as he knelt, despite the creaking of his knees. "Aim higher than the clouds, my child," he whispered. A photographer captured the moment, which later appeared in international magazines under the caption, "Faith in Flight." That evening, a private celebration filled the mansion with apprentices, librarians, pilots, engineers, donor mothers, and even former skeptics who had once mocked Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson raised a glass for silence. In a voice soft yet firm, he declared, "Love is the only investment that never depreciates. Thank you for proving it." The twins presented a final surprise, a documentary about their journey, scheduled to screen in schools worldwide. Mr. Thompson watched the trailer, filled with montages of sawdust, library halls, and runway lights. Overwhelmed, he stood and said to the room, "If this story teaches anything, it's that every child is a runway. Clear the debris, and they will take off." Later, alone on the balcony, he whispered to the stars, "Maria, our girls fly higher than we ever dreamed." A distant jet glimmered. Perhaps it carried Lillian. Perhaps not. Either way, its trail traced a shimmering signature across the sky, a proof that vows kept with love can defy gravity forever. If you enjoyed our story, please subscribe to our channel for more stories and don't forget to like and share.